All right, we are live, I think.
Hello. Hello
I'm
out
joined by Ryan Watson, offensive line guru,
there.
and
Appreciate
he
the kind
has he has all the solutions for everything that's wrong with Tennessee's offensive line, and he's about to let you all know. Ryan,
Thank you for the kind words. I truly thought if I had all the fixes and everything, I'd probably be hired by the Titan staff, and my life trajectory would be a whole lot different than it is now. So yeah, but we can take a look at it, and I can tell you based on my experience what I'm seeing because this is what I kind of cut my teeth. Vic Wallace over at Lambuth University was my mentor, and he was a guru in the power eye, pro eye, zone, outside zone, power counter, all that good.
hmm
He was in of course the play actions off of it. So this is kind of how I cut my teeth as a player, and also my first couple of years as a coach under him for offensive line. And then, if you can believe it, got moved out to wide receivers coach and then passing game offensive coordinator. So didn't stick with the offensive line and running for long, but understanding the running and the play action helped me be a better receiver coach and a better passing game, understanding passing game as well.
yeah. Every time I talk to a coach that has like kind of a seemingly odd combination of experience between positions, they always say that like learning a position that doesn't directly affect you is so helpful.
It is.
What what do you think? You talked about like the play action outside zone. What do you think about um, kind of that aspect of Tennessee's offense this season compared to under Arthur Smith? Is there anything you've noticed that has been like a change up or that they're not doing as well?
Not specifically, other than we were talking about this earlier, and Super Horn, Bill Ott put out a great All 22. And one of the things that he brought
Yeah.
up was that Art Smith was able to kind of, he had his beauty was in his simplicity, where he kind of kept things simple. There's an old football term, you want to kiss it, keep it simple, stupid, because a lot of times the easiest path or the simplest answer is the correct one.
hmm
So I don't think anything that's going on. But let me just say this first and foremost: the big difference this year is just the injuries. I know
Yeah.
that they had some injuries at tackle and they're rolling some people in there, but for the most part, the guards, the center was the same, and you kind of had a different either Nate Davis missing for a while, which is very important for a zone game. Your two guards have consistency and be good. Saffold, it's not that he's game to game; he seems to be play to play when he's active. He's got that reoccurring shoulder issue, and I'm telling you right now, when you're a guard, you see a lot of his pass pro problems that he's having, where he's getting. I think defenses are attacking him on that shoulder. He's
hmm
easily letting because he doesn't have a whole lot of pop, and if it does, it goes dead on him, and he's not bringing his feet with him. And it's just kind of a whole mess. And those are the pressures that you're seeing him give up. So as far as the run game, some of that same stuff is happening where they're not really working as a unit, and having Derrick Henry down obviously is bad as well. So then you mix all that in with no threats out at wide receiver, no consistent threats with the injuries to the receivers that you've had, the receivers leaving the team that you've had. It's kind of a mess, which is why, just if I can preach for a second, I don't think it's all that
Go ahead.
fair to Todd Downing deserves his fair share of criticisms for what he does, and he's not. I think that he's not quite there yet. Art Smith took a while to find his groove and figure out what really worked as well. So Todd is Downing is also doing that. Unfortunately, though, Downing is also trying to find his way. Much like it's kind of tough to judge Tannehill during this time when you don't have all your weapons, and the way that this offense is built, it has to stay on schedule. It has to stay ahead of the chains. The 3 to 4 yards gained off inside zone are fine because that's staying on pace with the 1st and 10. Because now you're 2nd and 7, your whole playbook's
hmm
open to you. When they start getting to a consistently 3rd and 12s, 2nd and 18s because of penalties, that's when you kind of have to throw it out the window. So it's tough to judge an offensive coordinator when all this is kind of going against him. He has had moments in halves where you think that was a heck of a half. San Francisco, this latest one, second half, was one of those halves where he's able to mix it up. His tendencies weren't as predictable. In the first half, they seemed like they were AJ and Julio were on a pitch count, so people were mad that they were out of on second downs. They were coming out of the game and dictating what was going on. But the Titans had a clear plan in the first half: keep it close and let's open it up in the second half. And then AJ Brown really opened it up. Welcome back, AJ. And Tannehill probably had his best half of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I always kind of lean towards um, like blaming players over coaches just because personally I find it a lot easier to identify like an individual player struggling For me to really make like an insightful analysis of a coach from a play calling standpoint, like I really have to grind the film and look what they're doing as far as different formations and um, everything that they're trying to build off the plays that they're trying to build off of one another. But I look at games like the Jets game and the Steelers game stand out specifically, where it's like I would love to have some huge criticism of uh, Todd Downing for a lot of this stuff, but you look at I mean, there will be times that they're running, perfectly good passing concepts that Arthur Smith ran successfully last season, and there's just nobody open. And it's like, you know,
Yeah.
at a certain point, players have to win
Right.
one-on-ones.
Well, and the big difference in that Steelers game too, because at halftime we do a halftime hits for Broadway. My host of the Coaches Corner podcast that we're on, if I can do a selfish plug there,
Go ahead.
we met it. We were talking at halftime about how in the Steelers game that the Titans were really kind of controlling the game and really doing what they kind of want to, and we're like, well, this is all they have to do to win. And then Julio goes down. And he's no longer grabbing the attention the secondary is. It changed the concept of the game altogether. And that makes it tighter when you take weapons out from offensive coordinator. Shouldn't matter because what's the old saying, next man up, NFL players should play. But when you're going from like a Julio Jones and an A.J. Brown, and no offense to Nick Westbrook-Akeen or Hollister or any of those guys, but they're not the same level of receiver. And when you're kind of limited to the types of routes they're running, the quickness, the sharpness, the depth, consistency, when those kind of things, for example, in the San Francisco game, there was a play, McMath ran too shallow on when AJ was trying to cut under him and they ran into each other. Tannehill takes a sack because he has nowhere to throw it. That's not on Tannehill. Maybe he just needs to, I'll say this, maybe he just needs to throw it out of bounds. I think he took a sack on that play.
Which play are you talking about?
It's in
from the Steelers game?
From the Niners game. It's
okay.
I think it's a conversion late in the game. From the 49ers game. But it's just those kinds of things where the receivers weren't on the same page. And there's plenty of other examples. I'm sure you can find them all over the Steelers game. The Texans game comes to mind where receivers just weren't running the correct depths. It's tough for a quarterback to get to trust. And you saw that in this second half of the Niners game that Tannehill clearly trusts A.J. Brown and leaned on that because there was about 3 or 4 plays I thought Julio was the better option.
Mm-hmm.
Tannehill just has that chemistry with A.J. already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Julio. There are a few plays that I had marked where Julio was screaming open. I've been getting a lot of questions about like, is he like not getting separation? Are they using him as a decoy?
Yes.
And you can let me know your thoughts on that. What I noticed from the 49ers game specifically, there were a few times that he was, on the backside of passing concepts. There were a few times that, him and AJ were kind of running combo routes and who Tannehill targeted, was dependent on the coverage, and AJ happened to be the one that was open. And there were a few times that Julio was open and didn't get targeted. Just in terms of like athletically, the way that he was moving around in the 49ers game. I mean, I thought that he looked relatively, okay.
I thought he looked fine. The couple plays that come into mind just was AJ was on the inside of him in the slot, and it was just an easier throw. But Tannehill did force it, and it kind of glanced off of AJ's hands. The coverage was there, and it popped up in the air. Almost was an interception. And
right.
Then,
yeah. Let me. I can actually pull that.
And Julio was on the backside, wide open for kind of it's kind of it's a modified slant skinny post, like short post at about 12 yards instead of the regular depth. So he was breaking wide open and would have been a nice gain there. So it's just those kinds of things that incompletion. I think it's going this way. I think this may be.
I think this is it.
This is it. Yeah. Look at the safety rolls down in his coverage. Right. AJ almost immediately reads Tannehill's eyes. But if Tannehill just follows his progression and can read it, because what they want to do is they're trying to read this route combination is trying to get that safety out of the middle of the field or out of that quarter right there and down, and that's your read. So if he comes down onto AJ, Julio should be right behind him in a window that's open. If he stays back at all, then AJ's the clear read as he's uncovered there. Ryan Tannehill, I think, reads uncovered and wants to go fire it out there immediately. I can give him a little grace if he's a little gun shy this year with some quick pressures and everything like that. But offensive line seems to hold up pretty well, as we'll see here in a second. But I thought on this play, if he just would have held it a beat longer, which I know is asking a lot, and then got it out to the numbers over into that window right there off the left side of that defender, I think Julio is able to catch this, and you'll kind of see him break here in a second. Well, you'll see him break open right here
Yeah.
at the top of the stem. And I just think that he can fit right under that safety who's crashing over the top and trying to protect from anything, and he can get again. It's at least a first down. That's what you're aiming for there.
Yeah, I mean, because it looks like the Niners are in looks like cloud coverage to the boundary. I would say. I mean, cover three, you're just like reading that middle hook defender on the slant. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think that there's here's another, I think ended up being a 3rd and 11 conversion. I'm not ever gonna. You've got Julio down here at
Yeah.
the
This is what I
bottom
saw
of
earlier.
bottom of the screen. I'm never gonna criticize a quarterback for converting a 3rd and long and like missing a deep shot, but I mean,
There was a clear. We're going to run our verticals on the outside to clear and get those safeties up and gone, and then we're going to take advantage of two linebackers who are lesser coverage people and try to fit in the window. And this was a clear because they did this, I think, 2 or 3 times, two
they
times.
did, yeah. I call this passing concept middle read, just
Yeah,
like a super simple concept where you're basically just going vertical down the sidelines uh and then like a stop route, like just
find the
basically
soft
a,
spot,
a, a
basically.
stop route right at the
Yeah,
sticks. So you're
find
just
the soft spot.
going deep,
Exactly.
right? Just sit down in the zone there.
And for some reason they flip to man, and they all mess this up. Then that stop turns into just a modified dig. If he sticks on your hip,
Right.
you just got to run away from him, and hopefully your quarterback can read that as well, and that target now. And that's why you run those verticals out so that you can, if that possibility happens, you now open up that entire under to the field there. So that's kind of why that's the target is the call. And a lot of times, offensive coordinators, you will call a play and you'll tag it. Um, you know 60 verts, Y stop, Y read, whatever, for the first down. And if you tag something, typically that's what you tell your quarterback, this is where I want it to go. Now we had to do that in college a lot. I don't think that happens too much in the pros, but I think that right now you have a clear target that you're going to get that first down. And this Titans offense again just has to find ways to convert first downs to be successful. So I'm not going to fault it, but obviously Julio running deep on that play specifically was kind of like, yeah, you'd like to see that shot, maybe get him in the groove at some point before the playoffs.
Yeah, and like here's again, we've got 3rd and 15, literally the exact same concept. You're just gonna have them come and just find wherever the opening is. I mean, I came away pretty unimpressed by the San Francisco's linebackers and in zone coverage, I will say, but
They were much more active in the run game, and I was actually kind of impressed with how they flowed. And I was equally impressed with Nate Davis in this game with how he's able to get to the second level consistently. The offensive line as a whole did a pretty good job in the run game all night. There was some issues here and there, which some of it stemmed from your tight ends trying to. They clearly had a set to where their pass protection because Radens was in the game for the first time that they were going to protect him a little bit. So a lot of the calls, it's not a full slide, but it's half slide or it's the protection where the floater is going to go is all going left towards Radens. So
right.
the Brewer could help with a kind of misstep if they were stunts. You saw Jones looking over there that way. And then what they do off the other side, and if it was, especially if it was Bosa on the other side, is they would chip to help Q. Now, if it wasn't Bosa, they didn't do it as much, those kinds of things. But that was kind of the clear game plan in the pass set to kind of help alleviate some of that. They also would run a H or a slot receiver inside of Bosa on a quick route to just help delay a little longer for Radens to get in his set and get comfortable.
Yeah.
And they utilize cuts quite a bit in this game, quite a bit. It was
Yeah,
like 4 or 5 times.
Dylan, I have tagged all the times that he did a cut block. I mean, anytime they ran quick game,
Quick game.
basically Dylan Radens would just cut.
That's a good
I
coaching point too. The reason you do that in quick game is because you're trying to hit something quick right there in the seam to the numbers. And what you wanted is two things. You want to try to get someone in someone's feet for your quarterback, so they don't get their hands up, but you're also trying to clear that throwing lane for multiple reasons, but also so you don't have something bending and getting right in Tannehill's face. So that's a concept that's kind of true across the board. Because you've seen a lot of tip passes this year of guys getting down. So it was a good job of him. I thought he did a great job of setting, and then he got immediately down and lunged through the legs, because a lot of people think you cut, you go straight down, and you
Mhm.
aim for toes. You aim to step on toes and then escalate your body through the bottom half so that they have to try to jump over you, but their hands are naturally going to go down, and that's what you're trying to clear that lane for. Sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier having Ferkser come in and having Ferkser chip and then release out for a route. I really liked this play design. It's 3rd and 8, and they're basically gonna just run like verts with a shallow cross underneath. Um, and against man coverage, obviously crossing routes are a great man beater. Against zone coverage, though, at this point, they had been, killing the Niners all game with these
Curls that
deep,
they did.
deep curls over the
Yeah.
middle. And so you're stretching the zones vertically. Ferkser's going to,
This is the first.
right here, he's going to chip, and then just so much open space.
Well, this is also a benefit to chipping, because you can now read what the coverage is on that person, and you're holding that linebacker. You see, I think it's 51 maybe.
Aziz Al-Shaair
Yeah.
is
So he
51, I
holds
believe.
there, and then he's kind of caught in limbo. Then he holds off the zone on that side. Now you got Ferkser running across, like you just said. You clear out everything, and there was a play also early in this game where they tried to run an under with AJ. It was a very similar concept, and they tried to get him breaking, but unfortunately, San Francisco didn't bite on any of the down the field stuff, and they stayed up, and they were able to
Mhm.
tackle or be there for to stop that. But this was 3rd and 8, and this is why sometimes people always say, "Oh, why aren't they running routes past the sticks?" Why? Because you sometimes want to scheme something open like this, as you just pointed out, to where you can get some crosser coming in here, open that up, and now let your athletes make. I will be honest, this play specifically, I'm on the couch watching and going, "Hold on to the damn ball, hold the ball."
Oh, no, I literally said that. I mean, I was watching the game with my mom, and I remember it right at about this point, I am screaming, "Don't fumble, don't fumble, don't fumble."
Right.
Um, yeah, I just
But
have,
if
like, shell shock from that,
we want to go back and look,
terrible play against Pittsburgh.
yeah, I don't know if you went off it. I was going to look at the blocking real quick on it, because I think that
Oh, yeah.
in those 3rd and 8s, it's very important too to have good coverage here. And you look what goes on. So you have the chip that's setting up, but there's also it turns into a stunt. So good job on
Mhm,
Davis. And this is where Davis has struggled a little bit this year. And I really like where he's kind of come around these last couple games. The last few games for him have been, he's played on par to what he was last year when he was being mentioned for possibly all pro votes and or Pro Bowl votes and all that good stuff. So you see here, he starts to work out. Q takes over as that pressure, as that tackle loops or crashes out, and then Bosa looping in, and he also gets decked by the running back releasing. So Bosa had a tough night getting multiple Titans thrown at him, but game plan, good job. Radens does a pretty good job here of also, there's a stunt defensive end in tackle out loop here. They did this all night to the Titans. They were really
yeah.
trying to attack Radens, and you pointed your film on Dylan Radens. If you're out there in viewership land have not checked that out, the clip, it really does a good job of breaking down and kind of going to some of the talking points where you're talking about how he's kind of a more of a natural. He likes to. This is going to sound, how do I make this not sound bad? He's not very aggressive, so he lets kind of the attack come to him instead of attacking it. It's a fine line, because you don't want to dip your head. You don't want to
Right.
attack and punch out, because then you get pulled, and there's a lot of defensive moves that can get around there. He's athletic enough, though. I think he's a very athletic tackle, and that then you see that come through in the run game as
Extremely
well.
athletic, yeah.
Extremely, and that saved him a lot. That saves him here, because you see, I don't like that he pushes both hands. I think he pointed this out.
Yeah,
I don't like how
this
he pushes.
this outside hand
Mhm.
committing, if I can, get the draw, well, I mean,
Left hand
y'all
on
y'all
the
can tell
stick.
what an outside hand is.
Yeah, the
This
left hand on the
outside
stick.
hand, he commits this outside hand into flushing it, but he's gonna need this outside hand to pick up the looper that's coming around, and this is kind of, I mentioned this in the video, just athleticism bailing him out, because, he's able to
Get on his
flip his
horse,
hips and
basically.
and
Yeah.
and still get him out of the play.
let's talk about simple physics when you're talking about that and why that's important. Because look what it does to his shoulders ever so briefly. It turns his entire momentum in his body in
Mhm.
towards. So getting that left arm in turns his shoulder here. And now he's done two things. He's not only got himself in bad position, but he's given even an inch of a shorter corner for this looper to get around instead of being. I know it doesn't sound like
Yeah,
much of a difference,
that's true.
but these split seconds in the NFL with these athletes that they are, that's a large human being who's moving very fast.
Mhm.
It's you've got to be in perfect position. You've got to really technique because when you pick up these twists and it's tough to do live, it's easy to talk about, and that's what makes
Mhm.
analysis so kind of mind numbing sometimes to me because people say, "Oh, he needs to pick that up." I get that, but these are very large, strong individuals that are also in the NFL. You're in the NFL. You should be able to pick that up. Well, they're also in the NFL. They didn't
Yeah,
get here by just osmosis or just hoping they could make it. They worked their tail off too. So
and
sometimes they make good plays.
I was another thing I mentioned in the video. I was really impressed on the stunts with uh, Dylan Radin's staying at the same level as like level vertically
Mhm.
as Aaron Brewer when he was passing those off. Because like a lot of times when you've got a lot of stuff moving around, like if he's 1 yard backwards, that's a wide open window for that penetrator to get through. And like a lot of times when you're running a stunt, you'll have the penetrator who's trying to occupy the gaps, and then the looper or the tag defender who's kind of like the designated rusher that you're trying to scheme open. If you look at a lot of the pressure that the Titans gotten off of stunts
Simmons
this
is great.
year, it actually has come from the penetrator who's
Mhm.
not traditionally the person that you're trying to scheme up the pass rush for. And it's because if these linemen that are trying to pass it off, if they don't stay on the same level, then you're just opening up a gap for them to get through.
You think about it like a wall. I know this is rudimentary. You think about it a wall. You're taught when you're doing basics in practice that you want to stay shoulder to shoulder and touch and then separate once you figure out
Mhm.
who your responsibilities are. But if you crack on that at all and you let a gap in, football comes down to gaps for the most part. It's who's responsible for what. What do you got to cut off? And then Simmons is so great at that for the Titans because he can maul that guard. And later on, there's a draw in this game that doesn't work because the crasher does that, mauls Davis to death, and the looper's free. But in the pass it that when Simmons comes through, like I said, yeah, he's got a free rush, and why not go take it? So it's all about that kind of stuff. So that's really good. Real quick, there is one comment from I saw Aaron Elliott. Then the Titans need to take a look at this channel and what they think. Is that you think they'd hate it or love it, Aaron? I'd like to see if you think they'd hate it or like it.
It's like people. I like. I've had people be like, "Oh, like you should work for the Titans. Like you're sitting here like figuring out everything that's wrong." It's like I guarantee you that they everything that I've ever mentioned, like the Titans have recognized that
Yeah,
on film. I'm not like
there's
I'm not curing cancer here.
there's so much about
They're
football I don't know.
they're way more on top of this than
Right.
I am.
Mike Vrabel's forgotten more about football than I'll probably learn in my lifetime just because of what he's been around and the types of coaches he's been around. Just
Yeah.
just it's just my understanding is so basic compared to those. And I think my understanding is pretty decent for where I am in life, but I'm always trying to learn more because I think that if I know more than anyone else, then I'm failing to learn. And I hate people who say, well, you've clearly never played football. Well, that doesn't matter. Some of the smartest football minds I know have never played a significant down in football, but they studied and they can understand it because once you understand the concepts and the reads, it's easy. So I hate that term that people say, "Oh, you're a nerd." I'm clearly a nerd too. If you see all the Star Wars and Marvel stuff in the background here, nerd is not a bad thing, but it's just I hate that people say, "Well, you've clearly never played." Maybe some aspects you don't understand about what a play feels like or the physicality, but I mean the basic understanding anybody can get there, man. I hate that way of thinking.
Well, when it comes to being a nerd, I basically spent all day charting the Titans personnel groupings. So I'm right there
Dude,
with you.
your stuff is great. I'm telling you, it's easy to decipher. Your intro video really breaks it down and makes sense once you get everything in the columns. And for me, I was able to pull kind of the rushing stats up because I want to see those. That's what I'm interested in as far as the plays. And it's just so easy to sit there and say, oh, he's got this charted as an inside zone with a lead, or he's got this charted as duo. Cool. Let me
Yeah,
see.
well,
Immediately, I'm able to put my mind frame of like, what am I looking for? Which double team am I looking for? More of a scoop on the backside, that kind of stuff.
right, yeah, and the cool things that you can do with this are like run reports. So if I go to offense and we look at runs and look at the run concepts here, I can do a report on like success rate.
Oh yeah.
And here we've got, so we can see the success rate for the Titans. And this is in the 49ers game. We can expand this to the whole season right here. So most successful run on average is duo, inside zone, outside zone, 33% success rate. Some good success with toss, and then you've got read option, unsurprisingly, 90% success rate when they run the read option.
Especially with Derrick Henry back, yeah.
Lower sample size stuff. But
Yep.
yeah, no, there's from the standpoint of someone that like makes videos, being able to just see like, oh, why are they blocking, outside zone lead in this way? I've never seen that before. All right, let me pull up all the times they've run zone lead versus an over front and see like what the deal is with that. That draw play that you were talking about is right here. What
Yep.
I kind of missed the point that you were making. What were you saying?
So let's take a look at this. And if I remember correctly, and again, as I stated earlier before we went on, I've taken a lot of hits to the head. So my memory I sometimes mess up with names and how long a player's been with the Titans because it's just kind of a flaw. But if you watch this, the defensive end, they have a loop stunted. And sometimes like I said earlier, my point about NFL teams and NFL coaches, sometimes you just have to tip your hat. And this is a situation where they're not counting on any kind of a stunt here. They're hoping that, so if you look, Q is looking to block his man out, pass block,
Mm-hmm.
set him up the field, and ideally run him out of the play to the
Right.
right. He wants to run him that way. Nate, he should be looking to maybe favor or try to influence one way or the other. Looks like he is
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, but it looks like he's starting to turn and then watch this stunt just crash down.
Yeah.
And Q never comes off. Now I'm not sure they would have any success if he does come off because that's still going to be a jumble right there in front of the draw.
Yeah.
Look at what's starting to develop behind it. Look at Ferkser. Look at Ben Jones starting to get there. And if you go back to the wide, I'm pretty sure the next person is the safety, which is 12 yards down the field. And I think you've got it charted. They needed 15 yards.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry, he's deeper than 12. So look, if that stunt doesn't happen, or if they can find a way to pick it up and Quest and Q can just kind of wedge everything down, just say, well, screw it. I need just to block everything down in here. I know that's tough, but
hey man, I gotta tell you, Ferkser's about to miss this block though.
Sure, but where does he miss it though?
Right. Yeah.
So I know he misses it, but he misses it out. I also think that if so, just hang with me. You're right, but let's pause it right before he misses it if you can. So let's play pretend. I hate the what if game, but let's pause right there. So let's say that instead of it getting the running back getting bottled up because of the looper right there, let's say that now he is 3 yards past that. That angle from that defender is not going to be the same.
Yeah.
It is right there. And Ferkser, who is trying to protect that, and you see Jones is trying to set up inside as well. I also think that a running back running straight ahead like that with someone looping around has a chance to cut through. At least here's the thing. You're trying to play field position game at this point in time with at least two. So if you can get anywhere from 5 to 10 yards in this, and I know it's not a first down because they need 15, but this had a chance had those break out because you see how the spacing's starting to work. You're right. Ferkser misses this, but I've got to think to myself, if McNichols is able to break through here and they're able to run, McNichols is going to be a little bit more inside trying to read Jones's block to see which way he can cut. And he's got all kinds of options right there from the hash to the 50 to try to make a cut. And then he's one-on-one with a safety. Who knows what happens? That was kind of my only point, is that instead of it being a loss or right there at a 0-yard gain, that is potentially a 10 to 12 to maybe even more yard gain. So like people, I get it. you want to see him try to throw because they converted so many other third and longs in this game. And I get this, but this was early, right? This was a first down.
Right.
So you're trying to play field position, want to pin them deep early on. So they didn't convert the third downs, I think, until later, or there's maybe one other one on this drive. But the point is that you have to at some point in time throw a bone or try to deflect. And that's what screens usually good for. Draws can be done. I think this is the only draw they ran the entire game. So it wasn't like they tried to
Yeah, you're right.
beat a dead horse with it. But that's my only point is that if one thing goes differently on a play, and you see this a lot of time with zone, there's tons of zones in this game where it's just one player not blocking on the backside. Raiden's kind of let someone slip up a little bit. I think that Brewer also kind of got beat on one as well. So those kind of things happen. It's just in the NFL, that's that close to a 40-yard run or a 2-yard loss, depending on what happens right up front. Because if anything's game with an athlete running straight ahead at a safety.
So I have 2 points on this play. First of all, just um, philosophically, like how Todd Downing's play calling changed throughout the game. You can tell that the first half, but really the first quarter especially, they did not trust the pass protection. I mean, I know people are saying, "Oh, Dylan Radins should have been playing all this time," but the way that you can tell that they expected Dylan Radins to be an issue in this game, and that's why you saw the head scratching, like third and long runs, these screen passes that don't go anywhere. And as the game kind of progressed, and obviously Dylan Radins was still giving up some pressure, but the line was holding
Trust
up
her, yeah.
well relative to expectations. You saw them really like start to be more aggressive vertically. In the first half, I mean, they were running just pretty much curl flats and panther, which I call panther. I just call like double slants. But
Okay.
and then as the game progressed, they started attacking downfield a lot more because they felt like the pass protection could hold up. The other thing, though, and this is where I will be critical of Todd Downing, is the 49ers were sending a ton of stunts, especially on third down. I mean, almost every third down, especially third and long, they're sending stunts. And from my experience, like a stunt is kind of the killer of a draw play. Like when you're running draw, you want these guys getting like pretty much just straight rushing and flushing themselves out of the play upfield, and then you just bring it in there. But as you can see with this play, like when they're running these stunts, that kind of shuts that down. So I think that
Tennessee should have told him to do something else possibly.
yeah, I agree.
Well, and Downey's not free of criticism. He's
Right.
he obviously has been fired as an OC before because of reasons. But then again, I think that if he has a full year of Derrick Henry and a full year of AJ Brown and Julio Jones, I think they're humming right now, man. I think that you're seeing more of what you saw in that second half. And again, the first half of the Niners game to me was a bunch of jabs. It's a bunch of just feeling it out. Let's see how this tackle can do. Because what you don't want to do with the unproven. Because the last time you saw Dylan Radins in any kind of NFL action, he was getting absolutely crushed in a preseason game.
One of the worst like individual performances
One
I've
of the worst.
maybe ever seen.
I thought to myself, "Oh, great, they've just whiffed on 2 draft picks." But here's the thing, too: he's left tackle all throughout college. They stick him at right
Yeah.
tackle. And I saw a comment earlier, and it's so easy to say, let's put the one tackle who did pretty good at left tackle. But again, they filtered a lot of the protection to him. They filtered a lot of the chips as well. I mean, so he did well, and he held up on a lot of individual plays. I'm not taking anything away from him, but they also schemed for him to have help just in case. And he needed it a couple times on the stunts. I'm not sure if those stunts are picked up if they're not focusing everything to the left on him. They also helped out Q on the other side with chips. They had a clear game plan that they were going to help their tackles out from inside out and from outside in from the chips. But it's so hard to put a player who's done left and done everything left. Like you think about it, you've written, with your right hand your entire life. Try to start all of a sudden try to write with your left hand, how awful that's going to go. It's not a
Right.
one-to-one comparison, I know, but that's kind of how it is. So that's what I thought was wrong with him in the preseason. I said that early to Justin Graver, who you've had on your show before, that I thought that him being on the right side possibly led to some of that. So I think that I'm starting to think that maybe he's the plan to eventually replace Lawan in the future is kind of what I'm thinking. And now maybe he's earned some respect or some confidence to go back to right tackle at some point in an injury situation, but I don't see them replacing him with Q. just yet, unless things just come off the rails. Because Q hadn't been great this season, but he wasn't bad in this game.
It's speaking of the left tackle, right tackle thing with Dylan Radins, and going back to that preseason game against Tampa Bay, it was sort of a situation where he was so bad that it actually made me less pessimistic for his outlook than if he had just been kind of bad, which sounds weird to say, but because he was just such a disaster, literally looked like he had never played tackle in his life, it was just so obvious to me, like, oh, he is not comfortable on the right side, and it's like if he had just looked bad, it's like, oh yeah, he's not playing that great. He might not be a good player. But yeah, I mean,
Look, all
I
that stuff, yeah.
I really do kind of, and obviously they see these guys in practice every day. Um, but I do feel a lot better about him at left tackle than right tackle. Um, Rodney said between Lawan Saffold and Ben Jones, who might get the axe this offseason, if any of them. My thoughts on the offensive line and thinking about it from Ben Jones out left. And well, let's look at Saffold and Lawan. I think at minimum one of those players is getting cut this offseason because they're both 12 to $14 million cap hits with not a lot of dead cap attached to them. And they're both older players that have struggled with injuries, Saffold more so. I think that just from a cap perspective, one of those guys is getting cut. To me, Saffold has been, like, I would say Tennessee's worst offensive lineman this year, and that has a ton to do with injuries. I don't think that when healthy, he's as bad of a player. But when you have a player that's expensive, aging, dealing with injuries, and not playing well, to me, that's where I'm looking to make a change. And you can probably speak more to this than me, but I view the offensive line as a very chemistry driven position group where ideally I'm not trying to make a ton of moves if I don't have to. Like, I want to change one or two pieces at a time. And so when you look at an offensive line that's struggled the way Tennessee has, and here you see that cut block from Radins. When you look at an offensive line that's struggled like Tennessee's has, I'm not sure that they're in a position to be like, oh, hey, that our left tackle who has been like our best offensive lineman this season, we're gonna get rid of him. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So first and foremost, I'm doing just for the foreseeable future. I mean, and again, and let me just point this out. I am not the best with contracts and all this stuff because it's so out of my wheelhouse, and I know that has unfortunately a lot to do with it. Zach Lyons, a part of Broadway's the F Words Pod, one of the F Words Pod's hosts with Lebowski and
I listened to their latest episode a couple hours ago.
Yeah, so it's a great that we have a lot of great podcasts. They're a very entertaining one, and Zach. But my point is he's in depth with all that contract stuff, so I'd have to lean on him a little bit about that kind of stuff. But if we're talking about talent alone, and that's kind of where I can lean in, if the money doesn't make sense, obviously, and the talent is declining, then those are business decisions, and those happen in the NFL all the time. I think for me, I'm doing what I can to hold on to Ben Jones. Because I think that he has been over the past few years, he's been the most consistent Titans offensive lineman. He's been, I worry about him every time I see a quarterback sneak. Cause I'm like, is this the one? Is this the one where we're going to lose Ben Jones? Because he has just been so. I know he's missed some time, but he's been of the guys. He's been he's been real consistent. Dennis Kelly was consistent too when he was here, as far as health a little bit. But I mean, Ben Jones is up there. I think if you would have asked me this question 3 weeks ago, I'd have said you've got to find an answer for Nate Davis because he's clearly regressed, and I'm not sure if he can recover. Now, was some of this communication? You mentioned chemistry, and it's a big thing when you have 5 guys who are trying to accomplish in one missed block and throw the whole running play off. So. It was the communication of him and a new tackle messing with him. Was it the concussion? Was it COVID? What was messing with him physically? Like, was it, those kinds of things? He clearly has rebounded these last few games, and I'm comfortable with Nate Davis coming back. Q, I'm He's a great story. I'm so happy that he beat cancer. I'm glad. I really hope that they find something through free agency because you whiffed on your right tackle to be 2 years ago in Isaiah Wilson. I know that's not all the Titans' fault, but the fact that he's back in the NFL now and may actually play this week is just mind numbing to me. But you missed on Panda, which was going to be your right tackle of the future. It seemed like when you could kind of plug him in. So now you're scrambling. So I think I'd love to see them address that in free agency. The problem is I don't think there's a whole lot of great names coming up in free agency. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. So I think you just have to do what you can do. So now it brings you back to your point about Saffold and Lawan. Lawan has been rumored about being a casualty because of the way his contract is structured and what he can be doing, especially if he's going to stay hurt and all this kind of stuff. I don't think he's been terrible when he's been healthy and he's been in there. Outside of the Arizona Cardinals game, I think that he's been pretty good. Now, is he worth? We can have a different debate on if he's worth his contract, but I think you can have that debate about a lot of NFL starters if they're
Right.
worth their contract. Sometimes you pay because of what the position demands to
There's
keep.
not a lot of there's not a lot of bargain left tackles on their
Nope.
second or third contract. Like,
No, no. I think Lawan has been fine when he's been in there, and I don't think he's missed a terrible amount of time. Or obviously, I would love for him not missed any time, but that's just it's NFL. People are going to be hurt. He's coming off ACL too, and ACLs can take anywhere from if you're a freak like Adrian Peterson 9 months to heal. Sometimes it can take. And again, Zach has Dr. Lyons has this kind of mapped out too, as far as how long injuries take to heal. But ACLs, if not physically, then mentally, can take some time to get over as well. So. The one that worries me the most was Saffold at his age with that shoulder, because if those shoulders go with his power, that's his bread and butter. That's his moneymaker. If he
yeah.
loses that, he's got good feet to decent feet, but if he loses his power and then his feet die, I don't know what he brings you. So, and Brewer seems to be a little bit undersized. I think he's good in a spot start kind of thing, but I don't know if because he's still like Radens, he's more finesse than power, and he struggles. And when he tries to get power, as you see on this play right here, he gets dipped around because he lowers his head and tries to create his power off of leaning into it, and that's kind of a death sentence there.
Yeah. I mean, we can move on to Brewer. He's kind of like, Nate Davis is a really good run blocker
Yeah.
and a bad pass protector.
And there's no way
Uh,
to sugarcoat it. He's not great in the pass pro, but
Aaron Brewer is that turned up to like 11. Like, I don't know. Everybody's wanting, and these plays I'm showing. Watch left guard here. Everybody's like wanting to say like, oh, let's roll with Nate Davis and Aaron Brewer at guards. I mean, that's one of the worst pass protecting guard duos in the league. Aaron and to me, Nate Davis's issues in pass protection have to do with technique. Like, we talk about leaning over and
he'll
punching, like punching down. He's terrible at that. Aaron Brewer's issues are just like he's small. And you really saw that if you watch the Steelers game. There were a few plays like this play where
he just walked back. I mean, just
you've got Julio deep. This is a touchdown on the first play of the game if Aaron Brewer can hold on for one more second. So you've got plays like that where he's getting beat terribly, but just on a snap to snap basis, especially anytime Cameron Hayward was lined up over him, there was just an automatic, and like here he gets beat with the swim move. There was just an automatic 3 to 4 yards of ground that Aaron Brewer was going to give up. And you watch him a lot of times, and it's like he'll have a good base, aggressive hands, and it's like he's just a small guy. There's not a lot of improvement that I can see with that.
yeah. Can we go back to the Julio shot?
Yeah.
Because that one took some heat in a still frame. And let me tell you this right now. People that want to analyze a still frame need to stop. I see it all the time. There's so much more information than just a still frame. You cannot make an accurate assumption or discretion about what is happening on a play in just a single like a still frame, because you don't know what's happening in the next second, because the
Right.
still frame you've seen is right here. Yes, Julio's breaking open.
Yeah.
Tannehill has a little bit of room, but he's got Hayward right in his face bearing down on him. He has nothing to step into. If he floats this at all, or if he undercuts the throw, he's dangerous of underthrowing it and being picked. So Tannehill is, whether he could or couldn't make that throw from his arm, he doesn't have the world's strongest arm. He has to step into his throw. And in my opinion, because this is on him immediately, you see that the Brewers just getting beat. Tannehill tries to look off to the right to open up Julio. So he's got to make that look. So it's not something he can just hit his last step and release it. He's got to look off the safety in the middle of the field to go over. So you see here, and look at Watt on the outside. What they're not telling everyone is that Watt also beats Q on the inside and is right there, giving Tannehill really nowhere to go. And again, he's a little gun shy this year because of all the hits he's taken, and he has no time. So he's getting now something snaps in his mind, and it's a split second decision. You can judge it all you want to, but now he's going into, how do I protect this football mode? How do I not have a turnover this deep and put our defense, in a bind? So he goes from a split second to, do I have this, to, oh crap, I need to protect the football. It is a fine line in the NFL. Now, would I love for him to just maybe take the hit and throw it and see what happens? Sure, in a perfect world. But Hayward's on him pretty quick, and the Brewer lets him go right around him. And we can look at the technique here in a second about what exactly went wrong. But and sorry for getting on a soapbox there, but I saw that being circled around. I didn't comment on anybody's pictures because, again, people can have your own opinion, and that's fine. But my opinion of this is that I don't think Tannehill had the proper time to properly assess what was happening in front of him to make that throw down the field. Because look, when he goes to throw it, Julio is what, 30 yards down the field from him, 30, 40 yards.
I mean, if you look at it, they're just running like a mirrored passing concept where you got flat verts, right? And so Tannehill's reading the right side first, and you can, like, the biggest thing that I would say, like, for people that are trying to get into watching film and specifically with pass plays, is the first thing you should always do is look at the quarterback's eyes and map out his thought process. So play action turns around, he's looking right. Unsurprisingly, Jeff Swam is not open. Shocker.
Shocker.
Now, at this point, now he has recognized that Julio is open. I mean, it's like so easy from a still frame to be like, oh, you got to make that throw. That is not enough time to sit there and launch a ball 35 yards down the field.
Watch his hops. Let's look at his hops real quick. He's actually about to set and fire. If you and then he ducks. Look right there. He's about to plant that back right foot because he looks over, recognizes he's about to let it rip right there. So people can stop it here, but he's literally mid hop when people said he should have been throwing it. He's going to have no power on that. It's going to float. It's probably going to be underthrown. It's not going to get there. And if it does, it's going to be a dying duck that's probably going to be picked unless Julio turns into a corner. You really want Julio with his hamstrings to make a sharp cut and try to come back and try to play defender. I don't want to. I don't want to see that. So he tries to make that, and he can't step up into it anywhere. And that's kind of the problem with this, is that he recognizes, oh, I'm about to let it flow. I'm about to rip it, but literally where I'm putting my left foot is now occupied space by my offensive lineman who got beat and a very, very, very large human being.
Tannehill is so good. He has limits as a quarterback. Where he is so good is linking his eyes with his feet. I need to make like a cut up of just times where his eyes and feet are perfectly in sync. But you see always, he does such a good job of, you've got feet this way, eyes this way. And then.
So now he's got to reset his feet back to the left if he's going to throw left. That's what I'm talking about, that hop, that left. Right. He's going to get his feet in. And just as he's getting them in line and about to plant, and you can almost see it where he gets that right foot planted, you see it start to go down. He's about to rip it. But as he starts to go forward, he sees Hayward right there in front of him. And now he's got to make a decision. So he starts to duck out of that because the arms are coming in high on him. He's trying to get underneath it. You see him trying to step forward, and there's Watt cutting any kind of step up away from him.
Yep.
Could he have maybe stepped up a second quicker, but he was in the middle of his read. So yeah, we can hindsight this and what if it all we want. And yeah, if it would have been a split second difference here, the main point is if Brewer can just hold his water, it's a touchdown.
Yep.
If Brewer can just, and you see it on the AJ Brown touchdown in the San Francisco game, Brewer actually bucked up a little bit and he got beat, but he was able to keep the guard out by pressing against him and trying to run him into Radens. But here, if we can go back just at the contact between him and Hayward right off the snap, he hops up, he steps in, and immediately you see his body's out of position. His feet are going back, his head is going up. His
Yeah.
punches. He's trying to overcompensate for the bigger person by trying to get that already get that stick foot, that stop in for the bull rush to
Yeah.
get around.
I mean, look at Hilliard's kind of in the way, but watch Brewer's feet here,
We get uneven.
and you don't even need to see the rest of the play. You can look at his footwork to tell what
Oh,
direction Brewer's going to get beat.
yep. Because he opens up. He's not in an
Right.
even base right now. He's trying to anticipate, and he does two things. He's trying to get that foot back, and he's also trying to lean forward. So now, if you think about physics, instead of him being in a power position, now he's too outlined like this, and he's
Hmm.
out balanced, and he's too narrow. You hit it in the Raiden's film when you get the heel click. You don't
Yep.
always need to click the heel. It's just the feet coming too narrow from a wide, powerful base. The same thing with zone. If you try to attack a linebacker standing straight up or running, you're going to get thrown. You're going to get beat. If you
Right.
duck walk or keep that wide base out to him, you're going to be more under control and be able to fight through. So he's beat almost immediately. And then what you'd love to see here now Hilliard runs into his back, and I think that does contribute. I'm not trying to make an excuse for Brewer, but when you have a running back running across your back like that, it's kind of tough for you to
Right.
think, now I can push forward. But you see where he starts to try to push around. He's playing catch up because instead of taking his left foot and meeting Hayward's knee, outside knee, and trying to push out, because tackles get beat sometimes on the outside, they get into a mode where, okay, now I'm going to run him past everything. Brewer should have gotten that mode right here. Oh, I'm beat. I need to push and run and give Tannehill more room to step up. If he pushes for a half yard to a yard more, I'd say a yard, Tannehill then can step up, and he has a nice little gap window there where he can just loop around, reset, and then let it fly. So, but that didn't happen because he's on skates, and then he just lets him go right around him on a short corner. We talked about that a little while ago with Raidens about turning on the pressure and getting that left shoulder in. This time he's turning it out to where it makes it skinnier and it's easier to get past.
Yeah. This is kind of like the thing that I was talking about with just like on a snap to snap basis, how there's just not a like he just doesn't have a lot of power. Like even when he's not in great position, there it's just anytime you've got a guy that's over 300 pounds making contact with him, it's an automatic 4 yards of penetration on the bull rush. What are your thoughts? I wasn't really able to form a good opinion on like my thoughts on this play, from a play calling perspective, and also from the perspective of like what could have been done about 98 here on this
Go back to the wide.
interception.
Yeah, go back to the wide for me real quick because he's at a really wide um, 14. I mean, he's out there. So it's one of those things where you're trying to run that out right away and trying to get underneath, and you're running kind of a you see is that Hollister, or I'm not sure which receiver that is. It's kind of fuzzy on my end. Is trying to run a natural pick route to
Right.
free up that running back on the edge because they're just trying to hit him quick, get him 2 yards. They're scheming this open a little bit, which you see the Titans do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I guess what you can try to do because Taylor Lewan is responsible for him. That's his man
Hmm.
blocking. Now, what I don't like, and if you go to the tight, is you see that Tannehill's kind of crashing in to help out Brewer, and then he goes out. But you see where Tannehill's setting up here. And Lewan is almost trying to set his pass pro right in front of him. I would probably like to at least flash out to him a little quicker, but he's given a hand. It's
Yeah.
tough. It happens quick. We can nitpick it after it. But I think that in my mind, I would have, if you knew that you were scheming to this side, I would have potentially, and with especially with the fullback or the H back of that Swain coming back across the tight end coming back across to block off that end, I might have would have liked to have slid the protection from an
Yeah.
offense and checked it at the line, knowing that I have that wide person out there in the throwing lane, checked it at the line to slide everything that way. So now you've got your entire offensive line. Now when Tannehill sets up, he's got more of a lane. Maybe they also don't do this because they're trying to influence him in a little bit quicker to try to clear that up a little more. But I think that I would like to get a body on him to try to get those hands down because now not only does he have room to tip it, but tips it to himself for the interception, which was just or tips it up for the interception for the person rolling
Right.
behind. So just a great play from the defensive line. But again, I think there's some things you could check at the line because that's what you see a lot of good offenses do. That's really the only thing that you can combat it because you don't want to waste time with Hilliard. He's got to get out there immediately. So he can't chip. He can't run at that
Right.
outside shoulder. He can't waste time. He's got to get past that. And they're hoping it's man protection, which it isn't. So they're hoping it's man protection. The corner outside of, I guess that's Nick Westbrook-Akeen when he runs his pick route. And
Mhm.
honestly, they probably could have flagged him here if they were being real nitpicky if it was a successful play. But he does a good job of getting in the way. At least he turns immediately and doesn't do any blocking. He tries to throw his hand up and get into a route, which is the design. So it's there. I think that it's going to be tough, but if he puts it on him right there, I think he can turn up and then lean forward for the first down. So it's there. I just maybe possibly could have schemed this, and you can what if it all day, but maybe a slide that way since you know you're scheming it that way, or
Right.
you flip it real quick if you can, if you've got the people that understand, and then run it to the wide side.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I really don't have any issue with the play design, but I think like sliding away from a quick passing concept to the flat when you've got a wide nine out here
It's asking for trouble, and they got it.
doesn't make a ton of sense.
Right, I agree.
We've got a sack here. Let's see what's going on with this one. Yeah, this
I
one's
saw a comment
question.
about him setting the protection. I'm not in the room, but I think that Ben Jones also sets protection, but they have to work together a lot. So I think it's a little bit on both as far as pass sets and pass protection. But again, offenses are different. A lot of times centers are completely involved in the pass protection calls. Sometimes they're not as involved. So I honestly don't know enough about the Titans or the insider, the inside ball game information there to know.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on chipping and how it can make angles more difficult for tackles? Because this is what happens here, where
Well, I think if you chip correctly, it's fine.
right, yeah, like so. My thoughts on this play, and you know a lot more about offensive line than me, but is that if Ferkser's gonna chip like this inside shoulder, it's gonna widen this pass rush out. Uh, Questenberry needs to take a much more aggressive vertical passing set than he does. I mean, he really just kind of turns around. It's like not even
He
really a
widens
pass
he
set.
widens an already athletic defender, for a tackle who struggles with some of this sometimes, either in or out. That's Q's problem. He struggles not only out, but in. So,
Yeah,
and I meant to mention this earlier about the 49ers game. The Q clearly was setting up to not get beat inside because he'd been beat a few times on that. And here, Ferkser, if you're gonna chip, it's called chip for a reason. It's a and get out. So now he can basically allow. Now I will say this: I think Q doesn't do himself any favors. If you watch him here, he's not really gaining any depth with that wide.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I was
Look at
saying.
his right. Look at his. Yeah, I'm sorry. Look at his
No,
right.
yeah,
Spins around and he's getting those depths. So you've got kind of both errors here. I think Ferguson needs to be a little quicker, a little harder punch, and then get out into his route instead of hanging. You see him; he hangs on, he hangs on, he hangs on. I know it's slow motion, so it seems like it's forever, but I
right.
think he's about a count or too much there. And if he gets out more of an angle route, he's open right away too, and he's open for a gain. At that. Now I don't know if he gets the 13 yards needed, but again, it's a successful play versus a sack, which makes the punting and field position even that much more worse. But you see that Q starts to turn his shoulders. All of it is about staying as parallel to the line as long as you can when you're in your pass set and kicking out there. So he needs to be getting depth and a little bit more level with that kick right there. Instead, he opens up and he really opens up that round corner. And I've said that a few times tonight where you open up. It's just what I mean by round corner is that and when you're doing power, you want to give your pullers a nice round corner that's easy to go around. And a pass protection, if you give a round corner that's easy to rush around, that's what that looks like right there. What's happened to Q? He gives no resistance. He should be meeting that 2 yards sooner than he does, and then pushing him up past the pocket. So that one's a little on. But I also think that Q's not expecting that to go that wide. But I think he needs to recognize what's happening in front of him and get depth with that third, fourth, I can't currently count, step.
Yeah, I know. I remember like maybe week 1, week 2, Rashawn Slater, the rookie for the Chargers, said in like a post game conference that he told he basically told them like stop chipping, like
Mhm.
I'm good. It's just screwing me up. And I've heard a lot of like former offensive linemen talk about how chipping doesn't necessarily always make it easier, especially if it's not executed properly.
There's also the late chip that screws people up. Derrick Henry's been guilty of that, where he goes in and
Yeah.
tries to chip on a tackle who's got his man seemingly blocked, and then he all of a sudden here comes this freight train and he blows it up, but he knocks him off the block, and now he's free for a rush on Tannehill. That happened. I don't have specifics, but it happened a few times last year. I was like, well, that sucks for the tackle because you literally did nothing wrong, but here your running back is trying to help, and he actually does a little more harm. So I think I saw in the comments where Taylor won. I thought I had heard that. I didn't want to guarantee that Ben makes the call, but my point was I think that sometimes with those wide nines can be difficult for the center to see. That's where I would hope that Tannehill can help widen that out or check, something. It's just one of those things where you hope you work as a group and unit there. But we were on the call on the field. We don't know if something did get called out and got missed. I, you know, Unfortunately, we don't get all that. I would love to know all that information, but again, I'm not making millions of dollars as a coach somewhere, like maybe my dream was.
The Titans should just release their play calls publicly, like
Yeah,
after the game.
yeah,
It would make it a lot easier for people like us because,
and for the next defense too.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Let's check out some more sacks here. Da, 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 da. Sack. So here's an interesting conversation. I've noticed that. I mean, and first of all, so I would encourage everybody to go read Superhorn's All 22 article on Broadway Sports because he talked about some of the issues that the Titans offense has. One of them is that I completely agree with is that the play action boot game has been completely ineffective. Part of that to me has to do with just unimaginative route design. But the other issue is that with offensive schemes like Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Art Smith running the play action boot so often, whereas before when you're faking outside zone this way, this backside edge defender would crash to fit the run. And what teams have started doing now is just having that edge defender trigger to the quarterback and pretty much shut those plays down. How would you go about foolproofing the play action boot to kind of prevent that from negatively affecting it so much?
Well, first of all, I hate naked boots because you're basically relying on the defense to be dumb.
Right.
And if they're not dumb, this is what happens. It just sucks because this sets the tone for the entire game. This was again, excuse my memory. This was early in the game, so
This was
period, right?
This was the second possession.
Second possession. So yeah, so it's early. This this helps set the tone a little bit. What you can do on boots though is that what you try to do is you try to run it off your zone, your outside zone or your inside zone action where you're having that natural offensive line, tight end or H back or fullback who's coming from the play side and coming back so they have goals to where if they see that outside end rusher, they can either aim at their outside to force them inside to give your quarterback enough time to roll around and get outside of it. And then they become a flat defender or flat receiver. I'm so sorry. That's a way around it, but that's also not a naked boot. And what they call here is a naked boot. Because what they're hoping is that they've run enough with Derrick Henry that the defender is going to come screaming down the line, and they've probably seen it in the game at some point, or they're game planning it that this is what they do. But it's also relying on that defense to be fooled. And I'm always in favor of safer plays that aren't trying to fool the defense or rely on them. Now, if they do get fooled and it works, then it looks beautiful, and no one's here to complain about it afterwards, But you have those kind of plays where you boot out like that. You're hoping that your quarterback is athletic enough, and I believe Tannehill is athletic enough to get outside on a naked boot. You see them run it all the time, and how he scores his touchdowns on some of the zone reads when he's able to get outside the pocket and get down the numbers. But that's really, you just have to call a different kind of play call if you want to make sure that you have someone accounting for that defensive end or that outside. You either do that or you run some sort of a receiver, line him in close, call it in, and have him run across his face again, or try to run interference. I made the joke earlier about make a puppet show in front of him, just distract him for a second, allow your
Mhm.
quarterback to get on the edge. A couple ways you can do that, but again, if you're truly trying to run a naked boot to make everything full and go that way, there's nothing you can do. You're hoping the defense bites.
Yeah, I mean, you see here, like against Pittsburgh, they have been doing that where they'll have like either a condensed formation with the slot receiver down blocking this edge, or just bring out a tight end to straight up pass protect. But yeah, I mean, like we were talking about this earlier today. It's like when you're running these naked boots with slow ass tight ends, it's like you're just not really stressing the defense at all.
Yeah, and you got to try to put stress on defense to have success, and these levels. Here's the other thing too is that when you run these boots and in these levels concepts, because your quarterback is now running back and across the field, and the level concepts is it has to be there because he's rolling. You want to put as many options in front of him. You don't want him throwing back across unless it's a called throwback, but then that's a wheel to the backside, something like that, where he's able to stop and set up and throw deep across. A lot of times, what you'll do with that front receiver is I'd like to see a bit of a change is potentially turn it into a more of a read where you tag down the field, where you can either turn it into a post fade type deal, that kind of skinny post. From the outside, or break it back to a corner over the top, and just have your quarterback try to dump it because it's a safer throw if
Hmm.
even he's leaving. And if the corner or that coverage is over the top, then he breaks it for a corner or a comeback. So right here, I would have said that's even. He's leaving. You see him start to break down and break out. He has no options down the field because that corner is sitting right there. I would have loved for the receiver here to make a stem to the left and then broke to the corner and look at all that open space where Tannehill can
Right.
just load and throw. But again, if that's not built into their concept, if they're truly just trying to make your levels at 15, at 10, at 5, or what have you. And another thing here is I don't think that Swaim runs the right route here. He may
Yeah.
have built in for a stop, but if you're running a true levels concept, then he's got to be trying to break wide to bring his route across the 30 as he gains depth as he's getting out, because that's going to put that linebacker in flux, and that's the linebacker that Tannehill's probably reading first. And because he's back, well, that running back's open. But now Swaim has got to get depth on his route and get out to the numbers to cause that conflict, and he's going to be open. If you look at it with the linebacker crashing down on the running back almost immediately like he is, and you see all this open space around the 30 where Ferkser, if he's coming immediately, he's going to break open. So I don't know for sure, but in my opinion, I think that Swaim. I said Ferkser. I mean Swaim. I think Swaim's running the incorrect route here for the flood concept.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, they had kind of a log jam in the underneath area. Yeah, it's like I don't know. The one thing that I like with play action boot is kind of running it a couple times and just on naked boot you're working underneath to deep back underneath. That's the quarterback's progression. And so I like running naked boot a couple times, just picking up like the 4 yard screen pass to the H back or whatever, and then off of that running leak out the backside.
Yeah,
Um,
that wheel route to the back that we talked about with
and
the seventh row.
the one of our probably Arthur Smith's best call, in my opinion, was I think the first play of the Jacksonville game, the first Jacksonville game last year. They ran, and I'll just draw it on the screen here, but they ran play action boot leak from the front side where you've got the quarterback running out and then you're doing like levels or whatever
Mm,
down there. And then you had Jonnu Smith right here, and he's going to come in and block for a second and then
yep.
break out there. I would if you guys are interested in like play calling and play design, um, Flying Coach with Peter Schrager is a great podcast I would recommend. They've had a lot of they had Arthur Smith on. It's co-hosted by Peter Schrager and Sean McVay actually, and they they had Arthur Smith on, and Sean McVay was like talking about that design, and he's like, I've never seen a play action leak with the tight end from the front side. That was a great design.
Gotta have time, and I guarantee, well, I don't guarantee, but I would hope the Titans leaked out a guard to help block in front of Tannehill, or had some sort of H-back / fullback. If Jonnu Smith was on the route, blasting game, somebody like that out in front, trying to add that extra protection so that Tannehill could roll out, then set his feet, get a line back to make a strong throw there.
The other thing is like this intermediate route from the backside. When you've got Cody Hollister running that, by the time Tannehill gets to this point, like he's got AJ Brown right here, Cody Hollister's right here, and so there are a lot of times that they'll run this concept, and what's supposed to be a triangle read is just a 2-man read.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that comes back to, like, again, the play design, not great, but it's really exacerbated by how bad the personnel has been.
Right, and you saw it. We talked about it with McMath running into AJ. There's been a lot of other players and I stressed this when I was coaching my receivers, is that if you have too many people, you're bringing too many people to the party if y'all are all in the same general area, because now you're adding corners that can read differently and can break on balls, and it's just not a good look. You don't want to have, because you're trying to put defense in conflict, put stress on the defense by having those different levels and having them spaced out correctly so that you can attack, because they're spaced out correctly because of what the coverage rules are supposed to dictate, because they're trying to attack multiple coverages in one pay. Because you would love it if you knew exactly what coverage, you can maybe tell and dictate by motion and some things, but you'd love to know exactly what coverage the defense is going to be every time. But you don't get that. You don't get that play card from the defense right beforehand. You can maybe get tipped off every once in a while. You can read something correctly, but at the same time, you design a lot of the pass plays and your pass routes to attack on different levels or different types of coverages, so that oh, well, this route clearly doesn't work because they're in cover 3. Where's my cover 3 beater in this scheme setup, or where's my cover 2 beat up in this scheme setup if I can't throw to I can't throw to the linebacker or to the middle, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really like this is an example of, I think, a good play design on the naked boot, where, like we talked about, you've got Jeff Swaim who's going to block this edge defender and keep him from triggering on the quarterback. And you see he's going to just shove him inside. And ideally, whoever that is, maybe Okereke, I don't know. But, he's trying to be right here in the quarterback's face at this point, but they have this tight end block him, get him out of the play. Now you're rolling out, and then you're just doing a 2-on-1 with this defender right here. And, Tannehill obviously has really good mobility, and so you can just play it off of that. Yeah. You want to look at some runs?
Yeah, I've told you my receiver background. You run me in dangerously talking about past concepts, and I get on tangents, so I apologize. But yeah, let's look at some runs, because especially like in some of these, Derrick Henry obviously helps, but I don't think Foreman and Hilliard have been that bad. Honestly, Foreman is definitely the one I would love to go to, but unfortunately, I think that he's had some. I may be mixing people up, and I apologize if I am. I think you've had some ball security issues in his past. From different teams and everything. So that's always an issue, but he's definitely, of the 2 running backs, he's been the one I have the most confidence in these power and gap schemes.
Yeah. I like Foreman as a runner. To me, there's just so many bad reads, at least that I've seen from him.
There's a reason why he's not been a starter in the NFL, but at the same time, you're trying to stop gap until Henry comes back.
Right. And I mean, like, you can kind of, like, I don't know how to say this. Like, Derrick Henry spoils you because his vision is so consistently good, that, when running backs, when the current running backs, whether it's Peterson, Foreman, Hilliard, whoever it is, when they're passing up open cutback lanes that Henry would have hit and taken for 70 yards, it's easy to be critical of that, but Derrick Henry's a kind of in a league of his own in that regard.
For sure.
What do you think? Superhorn actually was talking like earlier in the season about how Todd Downing has mixed in a lot more duo this season. I always kind of viewed the Titans offense as outside zone into duo, like under Arthur Smith. I always thought that was kind of like his main changeup. Have you noticed anything different as far as like tendencies with that?
So Superhome's really good about recognizing those tendencies and actually reporting on it. And he and I've
Yeah,
had a lot.
no, I wasn't like I wasn't like being critical or anything. I was just saying like
No, no,
that was
no.
a,
I didn't.
that was a different observation than I had had.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of times last year where they made a lot of again, because Derrick Henry, because he makes those cuts and he has those good visions, is that you have the zone and the duo kind of works the way that they run it. You watch here, because if he's doing outside zone, let's pretend this is outside zone and the offensive line is all stepping to the left based on the formation that they've set themselves in the alignment. So what does that do to the defense? It shifts them all to where they think they're running of offensive line, or excuse me,
Right.
outside zone. So they're all moving that way. And what duo does great is it's basically power. And this is what sold it for me back when I was learning this. And thanks to Superhorn, he and I talked through a lot of this because I came from mostly zone and power, and we didn't run a whole lot of gap and duo. Through my playing and my coaching, but it's essentially power without the puller. And so you got your double teams going back, working across. You're hoping that this action, and you see what it does to the linebackers too. This actual offensive line starts to go this way. You have kind of a false step looking like it could be from Derrick Henry, and then he busts out to the right side. Everything's flowing this way, making the doubles easy to pick up when they crash around, or they start to, you see Jones turning out. Saffold's easily able to get that flowing linebacker walled off. Davis and Q are able to wall off. They're both their guys, and then you're just hoping that Swain can dictate one way or the other, either push him in or keep him out. He clearly can't keep him out here, so he's just going to get on him and ride him down into the pile onto Q to help muddy those waters. The Titans have always, and people complain or they say, and again, I would love it if they got more talented receivers in the draft, especially this last draft, which probably had, some of the more talented receivers that have come out. I mean, the wide variety of talented receivers that came out in this last year's draft, and they came out of it with McMath and Fitzpatrick. So a little frustrating, but they also value very highly receivers who are willing blockers and can run block because of reasons like this, because they utilize them so much in their run game in tight and how they're set up. I would love it. And I've been screaming for years that I'd love the Titans to adopt more of a spread to give Henry a little more room to work, but that's just not what they've built. And that's not how they run it. So I'm not the expert. So I would love it if they worked a little more in there, but you try to put that stress on defense.
Speaking of that, great block by Westbrook here that I just noticed.
Yeah, look at him. He's basically the lead blocker, and he's trying to block the edge there off this kind of more of a, duos. It's so difficult too, because based on how defense reacts, it could also be zone, right?
Right. No, I like in my process of charting, like when I'll go through and chart all the run concepts, I kind of have an internal rule that I've adopted where it's like I will not spend more than 1 minute debating in my mind whether it's inside zone or duo.
It's like if the ball is gone.
If it's been a minute and I'm still sitting here trying to decide, just go with your gut, because the thing is it's like duo inside zone are very similar, where it's like if this play, if Hilliard was going to the right on this play, it would essentially be inside zone. And so it's like you can never know if the cutback, if he's making a cutback to the backside off of inside zone, or if it's a design cutback and the play was duo. Functionally, it makes no difference.
Basically,
just from like a labeling perspective.
And with the running back action here, with him stepping to the right and then cutting back to the left, it really gives the kind of that counter kind of look here as well. But again, you get your doubles, you get up to the linebackers. Lawan does a great job getting up and trying to he doesn't maintain his block. They're nitpicky things he does there. But you look at Brewer, you
Great
look
job by Ferks or by Pruitt here on Highsmith.
our Cole, as Robert Greenlaw refers to him, not my Cole, our Cole.
Oh.
But Mike Cole is a good little story too. I like Mike Cole as a player a lot. I would really hope that they get him a little more involved just on what he's shown flash wise. But again, I'm not a practice. I don't see the day to day.
Yeah, I remember saying this offseason that to me the most puzzling move of the entire offseason was not re-signing Michael Pruitt.
Yeah,
because he costs absolutely nothing.
nothing.
And
Luckily, he's back.
he's to me, he's like 80% of what Johnny Smith gives you. The thing with I think that I think people kind of misunderstand where tight ends add value. It's not about being this amazing receiving threat or being this amazing blocker. Like George Kittle is, in my opinion, the best tight end in the league. If he just played receiver, he wouldn't be a very good receiver. If he just played offensive line, he wouldn't be a very good offensive lineman. The value that he adds is that he can do both at a pretty good level. And so from a personnel standpoint, like you screw up the defense's numbers, because if they come out in base, you've got a tight end that can beat that linebacker that you're bringing in. If they come out in nickel, you're going to have a tight end mauling a slot corner down the field. So it's less about, like, obviously you have the elite, like unicorns like Kyle Pitts. To me, what I value with the tight end is being able to, at least like the defense can respect you at both things. Like the defense respected Johnny Smith as a blocker and as a receiver. He wasn't a great blocker, but he could do it. Ferkser cannot block. Jeff Swaim has no receiving ability, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you're dead on. Sorry for cutting you off there. I apologize, but I profess my love for John Smith 3 years after professing my absolute hatred from him because of how he started off as a run blocker for the Titans. He was putrid. He worked really hard in the offseason after I think his first or second year and really improved his game and became a plus blocker, in my opinion. I think he's a plus athlete too, and he could put stress on the defense from that position. Now, he never put up the numbers I thought he was capable of, but I also think that's because he was able to take some of that attention away from the defense to allow others like AJ and everything else to cook. And in this offense, the tight ends are probably, on certain plays, they're going to be the first option breaking out in the flats just on the play design. But when you got a Derrick Henry and AJ Brown on it, tight ends generally aren't going to be the top of the food chain in play selection anyway. But to have that guy that you can leave on the field in multiple situations, you don't have to Frankenstein a tight end position that the Titans have had to do this year because they let Johnny walk. Michael is probably one of the closest to that because of his ability in both, but he's not on Jonnu's level, and that's been one of the problems. Now, I would not have paid Jonnu the money that the Patriots gave him, and I know that's a whole other aspect. I'm just talking about the player as the player alone.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree with you on both of those points. Like, I think the issue was not doing an effective job replacing Jonnu Smith. The issue is not that we didn't re-sign Jonnu Smith. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is something that I've discussed, I talked about this on my video breaking down Derrick Henry's effect on the Titans running game, but I love this play by Nate Davis right here on wide zone, where you've got, so Derrick Henry's he's reading 1 and 2. Basically, it's an in-out read on 1-2, right? And if 2 is if who's that? If Kendall Lamb's got number 2 reached, then he's carrying this outside. 2 setting the edge, or 1 setting the edge, 2's out. So Henry's going to cut this back, and then
Jones.
What I love about this play is look at this backside catch hand by Nate Davis right here. To like this makes the play, because he's taken that cutback shoulder and just that subtle little job of not letting him get back into that cutback lane is so huge.
Think about this. Think about where the aiming part started on this play. Think about the gap that this targeted when you're running the outside zone, and
Mm-hmm.
look where because of the ability of vision and burst that Derrick Henry can have
Right.
off of this cut, and because the offensive line, because your aim points are to try to get that outside shoulder, but if you can't get to that outside shoulder and hook and cook, because if Jones was able to do that, then that hole is one gap shorter. If Davis was able to do that a little more effectively, it's one gap shorter, right? But look, because they stick with their blocks, and Q even gets his responsibility and is able to just to get a hand on.
Yeah.
Now there's this wide hole that there's an unblocked guy up there, but good luck. You know, absolutely. Good luck trying to tackle Derrick Henry right there with that kind of separation and his speed and his ability to get going. So great point out by you, the Davis. And this is what I'm talking about when Davis in the run game, why I think he's a plus on that side is because he's capable of these things. The problem is that he was putrid. He was minus in the pass pro earlier in the year, but that's kind of leveled out for him. So I think he's rounding into what he was last year a little more. So so blocks like that are definitely confidence builders and things to look forward to for Davis in the future.
Yeah. Like Davis and pass pro, I mean, I feel like every Titans offensive lineman since I was born has struggled picking up stunts, but like he must have gone to a class or something because the past couple weeks, there have been some really clean stunt pickups. This is another really nice reach block. Not even really a reach, just kind of like
Redirection.
yeah.
Talking
And
about Saffold.
uh no, Nate
Oh,
Davis, like his guy ends up making the play, but what he's able to do from like a difficult position, trying to reach check the one, like that hand usage there.
yeah. Let's walk through
Um,
Jones giving that shove to the outside shoulder. That's important because you look where that player is. He is tight eye to
right.
Ben Jones right there. So Jones is taking that shot on the upfield shoulder to allow Davis to now undercut. And you see the path that Davis is taking where he's able to bucket step a little bit and get under and try to run with that arm. And all he's trying to do is create a delay and just trying to run with and keep his feet moving at that point in time. Saffold, I actually hate that he overruns it, but I love that he sticks his foot in the ground and comes back and is able to shove out. Because, like you said, now that read is pretty clear where this hole is going, especially with the lead coming this side as well. It actually opens up it a little more with the lead blocker going back up on that front side. Safety walked in the box backer. I didn't see the wide on this, but having that done. But because Jones is able to pass and work up to Leonard here, and Davis is able to overtake to open this up, now you have two guys working, and Saffold's able just to hold at bay. You have your lead coming up. Now Henry's able to set that up, and this is what Henry's got so good at. And what I miss terribly is how he sets his blocks up before he uses his burst to get
Yeah.
out the gate. And this is what I think Foreman and Hilliard lack is the ability to set up their blocks in tight spaces like this. That's not a whole lot of time for Henry to decide. So he gets in, he gets close. Once it closes off, he then uses his speed and athleticism to bounce out. And that's one of the things that I don't think people were expecting from Henry was to have the lateral quickness that he does. Now he's had to work his tail off at it. But that's where I think that's not only a straight line speed, but his ability to get out of mucks like this and to be able to press that edge as soon as he sets up Torrey Carter, I think, right?
Yep.
It's in there fullback. So to set this block up to where he can let it in and let Corey work outside. And now he knows where his gap is and his lane is.
Yeah. So yeah, Derrick Henry's one of the most interesting athletes, kind of just from an extremity standpoint. The way that he's struggles so much with certain things, but he's all world at other things. Like he's not a LaShawn McCoy. Like if there's a guy right on him in the backfield, he can just kind of
Sure,
like
sure,
you
sure.
know
He's also 6'4".
right. No, yeah, and then that's just a function of his body type.
Right, right.
But
Exactly.
in terms of like planting his foot and making a quick cut,
Jump cuts are pretty damn
he's
good.
I mean, yeah, he's incredible. I One thing that I've noticed teams doing a lot more this year than last year to defend the outside zone is running a lot of like slants and run twists. Like right here, they're gonna have 37 come down and fit this B gap, and that's why Saffold had to readjust his angle because Buckner's going to slant inside to the A gap, and that can when you're running outside zone and you're trying to have that offensive line all step in unison uh, on the chalkboard, when the defense is just flowing right with you, it
Yeah, it's not ideal.
works out pretty easily. But when
Mhm.
you've got guys adjusting their angles like that, they can make plays in the backfield. But yeah, really good job by Saffold to just catch him with that backside hand, flip his hips, and then
Just get in the way. Just get in the way.
now you're just down blocking basically.
Yeah, and you don't want to down block because what he does too is I like where he puts his helmet and works him out because you don't want to down block him into the line because now you're going to trip up Davis and free up a
True.
defensive lineman. You're going to
Yeah.
trip up Ben Jones potentially because think if he goes and he redirects and down blocks, he's going to mess all that up. But what he does instead, knowing that where this play now should be reading because he has trust in his running back to make the right read, his fullback to make the lead block read is now he's just trying to get in the way and gently work him out of the pocket, quote unquote, out to of the run lane so that Derrick Henry can run by. And again, it's just good enough. And sometimes offensive line, I'm a big fan of the butt block where if you overrun and you turn the wrong way, you just start to block him out and like in basketball.
Right.
Then do what you can. But a really good job by him. He overstepped it for sure a little bit. You'd like to see him more step at the man, but he stepped out. But again, it's outside zone. So he's kind of caught in a catch 22 there. He stunts in. Should Ben Jones have come down? Well, that's a 3 technique coming in. Ben Jones has got to get on his horse to linebacker to make this play really effective. Just Saffold's got to man up and try to do what he can not to let that guy impact the running game. And I think he did just enough there.
Yeah. I don't know if you've watched, have you watched Keith Carter's coaching clinic by chance?
No, I don't believe I have.
All right. I'll send you a link to it
Please do.
after we get off it. That's one of the best coaching clinics that I've seen. And it's especially great because obviously I watch the Titans so much, but it's basically specifically talking about how the Titans coach outside zone, going through like their overtake drills. He's breaking down some film, talking about how, an outside zone, it's basically like you're trying to let the running back make you right, essentially. But yeah, I'll send you that link.
Which is great offensive. That's great outside zone. The good running back will make you right. Just stick with your block because that's the thing too. You don't know where the guy's going to go. You just got to get on him and try to push him where he wants to go and let your running back make you right. You can't worry about making your running back right. It's never going to work.
A couple questions about what program this is. This is Huddle. It's actually Huddle Beta, which they released, I think, last year. It's essentially like an upgraded version of Huddle with a better user interface. And if you guys want access to my film library where I have all the games fully charted and sortable, patreon.com/noflagsfilm, $5 a month. And you guys can break down some film pretty easily. If you just want to check out all of AJ Brown's targets, you can find that in about 10 seconds without having to ever go on NFL Game Pass, the worst website of all time.
It's really worth. I can chime in there to describe because this is just it's wonderful how you've done this. This was some of the I did this. I charted plays. It was my first kind of like low man on the totem pole when I was coaching. I know it's kind of tedious work, but man, once it's in there and once it's done, it makes it so much easier to go through. This play, this is why I love. If we're still on the same play, my video skipped around on me, but this is why I love Nate Davis and why I hope he's a future answer at guard in the run game. And if the Titans are going to build their offense around a running back, which and Derrick Henry, why wouldn't you? The shelf life is obviously a concern in running backs, but we'll see what happens with him. You see how he gets out. He's able to punch, and then he immediately starts to get on his horse and run. And he's able to get a punch on the linebacker and work out. He's athletic enough, and he's really improved his second level game from when he was first into the NFL and struggling with that a little bit consistently. Now, consistently, I love watching him get to the second level in that game. You watch Saffold as well with a little crafty move. And this is what I used to teach all the time is that if you pause it right there at the start, he knows he's got the linebacker there. But if you run straight out to him with the play going away from him, that he's going to give up the angle. So what he
Mhm.
does instead is he presses his angle at a 45-degree or something. Forgive me for not mathing this out correctly, but he basically takes an angle to his right to where he can cut off the pursuit where he's going to be, not where he is, and that's what makes this work. And the linebacker decides to do a no here, and I think runs around him. If I
Yeah, I mean, this play is perfectly blocked across the board, but 58 plays this
yeah.
terribly.
So the linebackers both do no-nos. You have one cutting out way too much and then one cutting in, making Saffold's block even easier.
Yeah.
And now you've just got a super duper athletic running back with that's and that hole doesn't look. I mean, it's a hole. That's a massive hole in the NFL, but that looks 3 times wider with the way that Derrick Henry can get up and get off on. And now he's man one-on-one with a safety. You know that that's when he gets those close-up shots of his eyes real wide. And he knows that he's
Right.
stiff arm or he's one little sidestep away from breaking this 80 yards. And I love plays like that when they just kind of play into your hands. It makes it so much easier an offensive lineman.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like that's about as good of blocking as you'll see. This can be the last play that we go over. We've been going for about an hour and a half.
Time flies.
But this is maybe the single most impressive play of Derrick Henry's career. Like if you just look at all of the different blocks that sets up throughout this run.
Yep.
Like, so outside zone, obviously, you've got you've got number 1 out, 2 in here,
Yep.
but he's got, and then yeah, so they'll do this. Well, they'll have the play side tackle help the tight end secure the reach block, and then bounce back and take the linebacker. So Derrick Henry cuts out. He's got Mosley here. Really good job by Quessenberry as well playing this. Sets up that block for Quessenberry.
Is it a killer block? No. Is it good enough? Hell yes.
Sets up this block for Saffold.
And then he's one step away. He's one step away from breaking it. I mean, just one more half second. And again, if he's not spending so much time cutting here, then maybe he's able to break this sooner. But because
Yeah.
of all that, the pursuit's able to come back. But again, the like you said, him setting all that up, it's just kind of a beauty to see him do this kind of stuff. Because and this just the little jump cut right there in the hole, he's able to get started.
Yeah.
I saw a comment about he has to be able to get going. Well, that's Derrick Henry's one downfall is he has to get going. So you can't meet him in the backfield. You can't have penetration immediately. And even here's a little leakage right there off that front side, but he's able to jump cut just enough. Davis is able to work up on the Mosley.
And then great job setting up the second level block for Davis, recognizing the angle that he's got.
This is what the run game is truly missing on a play-to-play basis. They're still hitting some long runs. They're still getting some success. And I judge a running play in this offense as success if it's 4 yards or more, because again, to me, they're staying on schedule based on how they built this offense. Again, I would like to see them spread it out and do some stuff. But again, with some personnel they don't have, I don't know if they could do that with the receivers and trust it. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But having Henry being able to be a threat like this, and having AJ and Julio is the playoff is the grouping we need we need as fans to see for the Titans to make a playoff run. And again, with having that extra weapon at receiver, if a team tries to take away Derrick Henry like you've seen in the past couple of playoffs, now I'm really looking forward to if you're going to double cover either AJ or Julio, the other one can go a little nuts.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, what I've always said, and there's obviously like an ongoing debate that will probably be ongoing for eternity about the value of running back. And it's like, the way I think about it is that you can absolutely have an effective running game in the NFL without great running backs, because most NFL running backs are okay, unless you're Trent Richardson or something. But Derrick Henry just gives your running game that potential for explosive plays, which is, one of the reasons that running the ball is kind of on a play-to-play basis less efficient than passing, going by the metrics, is because you're less likely to be able to get explosive plays from the running game. And Derrick Henry kind of turns your running game into a passing game in terms of the ability not only to move the chains, but also to get those huge, extreme positive value plays.
Exactly.
All right, Ryan, I appreciate you coming on. I feel like we got a really broad, kind of holistic look at the Titans offensive line, offense in general. Definitely check out all of Ryan's work. After we get off here, I will put your links in the description, and have a good one.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and I'll be back anytime you'll have me.